guys, it's Andrea, or Confessions of a Book Addict. I kind of just wanted to talk to you about how I became a reader. And tell you a little bit about me. I'm very socially awkward, so I think when I do videos that are, I don't want to say scripted, but where I try to convey what books are about or do reviews or anything, I concentrate so much on the content that I don't really bring myself across in it. So I am a young adult librarian, as you know. I was born in 1981, so that actually played a lot into it because I was born with something called hyperinsulinism. And at the time, it was very rare. And what it was is your body creates too much insulin. So I was having, my blood sugars dropped so low that I kept having seizures, and they ended up removing most of my pancreas. Because again, this was in the early 80s, that's what they did then. But I ended up with epilepsy due to my blood sugar dropping so low. And this is a big part of why I'm a reader, because in the 80s, what came about? Nintendo. So, Super Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt, Zelda, that was as far as I got in video game playing, and I never beat any of the games. Other than that, to this day, I can't play video games. So I was out of that loop. And then with epilepsy and the fact that I was always overweight, even as a child, so I was left out of a lot growing up. And I didn't do sports. I didn't do things where, right now it's under control, knock on wood. But when I was a child, it wasn't. When I was a kid growing up, it wasn't under control. I was on every other type of medication you could think of. And they finally found a good mix when I was 14. But so I wanted to show you kind of the books that I grew up reading and that kind of shaped me into who I am. So I guess it all starts with, I have Horton Hatches an Egg. Horton Hatches the Egg from Dr. Seuss. And I remember my dad used to read this to me, and I ended up reading it to the class I was in a literature class in library school. And the teacher's that was the best reading of Horton Hatches the Egg I've ever heard, and it's because I had read it so many times. And I kind of relate it to how I had my son, because I was kind of left alone to raise him, and even when I was pregnant with him, I was left alone. I had family. I had my family. But my ex-husband decided to leave at that time. Which is fine. It actually worked out for the best. I'm a single mom, and I like it because I get to make the decisions. And my son's a very good boy. You've seen him in some other videos. It's about Horton the elephant, and he hatches Maisie's egg, and she flew away for the winter because she didn't want to take care of the egg anymore. And then I don't want to give the ending away, but let's just say that Horton ended up playing a big role just by being there. The Butter Battle book meant a lot to me. This is kind of like a telling, like Dr. Seuss's take on the Cold War that happened in the 1950s, so I thought that was really cool. And then I also grew up reading from Jane Yolen, Piggins. And these are cool because, and I actually talked to Jane Yolen, and she said she wanted to do more, but the illustrator didn't want to. But I always liked the miniature. Like the little picture. So I grew up, I liked playing with dollhouses too, things like that. I had a plastic dollhouse, and then I would get the fancy furniture and put in it. And corduroy. And corduroy is another reason or is a reason I should say, that if that was a toy that's broken in the store, I'll buy that one, because I'll be well, no one else is going to buy it, so I'll buy it. And I personify everything. So that's also, because we had Toy Story growing up, and that came with that too. Then I was reading sort of classics, Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, Roald Dahl, Matilda, the BFG, which is still one of my favorite. I read it to my son last year, and he loved it. And also The Witches, which I have no idea where my copy went. So those were kind of some of my favorite books growing up. And then when I could start reading on my own, I would read The Babysitter's Club. This is actually my original cover of the first. It's the first edition cover. The book's gone. I don't know where the book is. This is the actual book. I found this in like a church sale. I was looking for this forever, and then one day I was just volunteering, and there it was. And I'm like, oh my God, can I have this? And they're like, yeah, of course. So that's Christy's great idea. And my son has actually read the graphic novels, which were good. And then I have, just a couple more. Those, and of course, Sweet Valley High. And the thing with Sweet Valley High was they had they called it like a epic book, and it went back into like the 1800s about their family, and it was like a big book, and that was like the first big book I had ever read. I think I was 12 or 13 years old, and that like started my obsession with big books. Like, I know not for everybody, but for me, it's kind of like the bigger the book, the bigger the accomplishment, because to me, like, these are my trophies. Although half of these I haven't read. I shouldn't say these. This is just my rainbow bookshelf. Books are my trophies. That's why I like to buy them, and I know I buy too many of them, but can you ever really buy too many of them? When I finish a big book, it's a big sense of accomplishment. And so that was the first big book, was this, like, epic Sweet Valley High book that's, I'm sure, out of print by now. But it was actually really good. And it also, since it took place in the 1800s, I really like that time period as well. So I also read Judy Blume, his book's Destroyed. But I loved her work. And then two of my favorites from when I was that age. And then I took I don't think I took a break in reading because I had some of the best teachers. But I listened to a lot more music. Like, I was really into Guns N' Roses from like 13 to 19. I would listen to a lot of music. But Little Women, Louisa May Alcott, and even, it smells good. It smells like old book. Yes, I am very weird. This is actually The Secret Garden. Got some fancy end papers there. See, and that's from my aunt and my grandma. So Frances Hodgson Burnett. This was one of my favorite books as well. As you can see, it's very loved. I honestly didn't start using bookmarks until this year. To me, it was always like the more a book looked used, the more it was loved. Now I'm kind of reconsidering that. So let me take when I was in first grade, which is when I was reading like the BFG and things like that, I had the best teacher, because now these days kindergarten you learn how to read and stuff. We didn't learn how to read in kindergarten. It was basically like preschool, another year of preschool. But we learned how to read in first grade. So I still remember my teacher, Mr. Short, who was actually really tall. He was probably over 6 feet tall. So of course we thought that was hilarious that his name was Mr. Short. And I loved first grade because that's when we learned how to read on our own. And through school, I was in advanced reading classes through school, and I still remember library in school, and we had the card catalogs then. There was no computer system in the library. You pulled out the World Book and did your research, and you went in the card catalog to find what you needed. So, and I still love card catalogs. Not as convenient as the computer, gotta admit. So, I also, all through high school, I had really good English teachers. I had one English teacher, Mr. Ornstein. I had him for like 8 different classes, because he taught film classes and debate class and English class, and I mean, he was as dedicated as you could be of a teacher. And then my 11th grade English teacher, Mrs. Flinter, in 12th grade, I would go sometimes on my lunch breaks and sit outside her class and listen to her teach. because she was that passionate about what she was teaching. And once I get into 12th grade, I was in World Lit, and I had Mr. Wood, who, he just made it fun. Like, we read everything. We even read we read part of the Bible, and he made it fun. Like, he, like, threatened to jump out of the window to get cookies. Like, these were passionate. I had a passionate teacher in college, too. He would read us the Aeneid from Virgil in Latin. A lot of the stuff in college, I don't remember exactly what I read. I took a lot of English courses, so it all kind of got mushed together. I took a lot of writing courses. I took a lot of film courses. In 2005, they decided to change my medication, my epilepsy medication, because I was doing so well. So he wanted me to wean me off Primidone, which takes care of grand mal seizures. Well, it didn't go very well. I ended up having 3 seizures in one day until my ex-husband finally decided to take me to the hospital. So the repercussions of that was I guess I had a little bit of brain damage because life was simple. Things just didn't bother me. I didn't worry as much. But it was also things like I got a new debit card and I signed the magnetic strip instead of the signature line on the back of the card because I was just confused and I didn't know. But I could always read. No matter what, I could always read. And what I read, which I'm assuming I read this version, because it's in pieces. But I have 2. One, I don't think I liked the translation of this one. I read War and Peace. And I love Russian literature. Like, if you can see that. That is a very paraphrased quote by Leo Tolstoy about vegetarianism. Whatever is in here, it reconnected neurons, it did whatever, and I went back to being how I was before I had those 3 grand mal seizures in one day. I don't know how to express the power of reading and what it can do for somebody. It makes it so you have a life outside of a room. It brings, what is the saying? I've lived 1,000 lives because I've lived in books. That's not exactly the same. It opened up a lot of the world to me, a lot of fantasy worlds too, which I really, that's what I enjoy reading the most is fantasy. Eventually, fast forward in time, I ended up working in the library I am now. I actually started as a page. I kind of took a leap of faith. I was working at Target, and then I was working at Rite Aid, and Rite Aid was just not a good place to work. It was also, the summertime, it was really busy. So I had 4 hours I was working in the library each Monday night, and I quit Rite Aid. And so I was living on nothing almost, so I was very lucky to have my family. Because it's 4 hours at night, which means 4 hours I'm paying a babysitter for. But I stuck it out, and I got more hours, and I ended up getting 12 hours in children's. It kind of takes off from there. I always had a love of, like, young adult literature and children's literature. So then one day I was babysitting my cousins. I didn't babysit often, so it was kind of like fate. They happened to be watching The Sorcerer's Stone. Now remember, I was born in the 80s, so I don't hear about Harry Potter. And I'm watching it, and I'm like, what is this? This is really, really good. So again, it's destroyed. But I started reading Harry Potter. I've now read these 5 times. I think these change everybody's lives. Just the friendships that are in the books. By the time that I was reading them, the only book that I had to wait to come out was Deathly Hallows. And I remember going into, BJ's, and there was a huge bin of them, and grabbing it as fast as I could. Actually, it helped me in my profession a lot. This will be the first year that I'm at the library that I have not done Harry Potter week, and that makes me kind of sad. But it was a lot of fun, so I was able to do Harry Potter week for 2 years in a row at the library for the children's department, And it definitely, I think, made me more secure and more confident in my job. And I got to, I got to share that love of Harry Potter and books, and we played Quidditch, and we did like potions class, and I did transfiguration class, which was really just clay, but I got to dress up. So, like, I bought robes, my Ravenclaw robes, because I had to buy them for work. Yeah. hmm So while I was there, I met, there was a page there, but she's so much more than a page. She became one of my very good friends. Her name's Sarah Garcia. Hopefully she's watching this, because she said she would. And she introduced me to a lot of different books, one of them being Inkheart by Cornelia Funk, which I probably never would have picked this up if it wasn't for her. And it's a girl and her dad. If he reads to her, the characters, if he reads out loud, the characters come to life, and what happens after that. And it's a trilogy, and it's very good. You guys should read it, no matter what age you are. I didn't pick it up till I was in my 30s. That, and she introduced me to Sarah J. Maas. Literally introduced me to her. We went to see her at Barnes & Noble in the city. I was still reading Heir of Fire, I think, and she was doing a signing for ACOTAR. So, that was a lot of fun. So thank you, Sarah, for that. Somewhere along the line, I don't remember where. I think I remember reading Looking for Alaska in college, and I didn't like it. It was either, I think it was in library school. It wasn't my favorite. I didn't dislike it, but it was almost felt like two books. But I did end up falling in love with John Green. Here's my copy of Fault in Our Stars. You guys are gonna hate me. Just comment down below how much you hate how I treat my books. The inside looks good, though. Yeah. So I found John Green, and I loved all his books. Like, I've already pre-ordered Turtles All the Way Down, which Sarah's obsessed with Turtles, so she should still read that, even though she doesn't like John Green, so she's not going to. Through John Green, I digress yet again. Through John Green, I found out about the Vlogbrothers. That was the first YouTube channel I ever watched. And I loved it, and I was obsessed, and I was very far behind in it, so I was just watching it. I was over, the Vlogbrothers 2.0, and they're so funny. If you guys haven't seen the Vlogbrothers, it's John Green and his brother Hank Green. And the first year that they did it every single day, I believe. And they talked back and forth via videos. They weren't allowed to talk like any other way. And some of the stuff was just hilarious. And that's how I got started on watching YouTube. And then what got me started on BookTube in particular, which I didn't know it even existed, was Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by J.K. Rowling. Because this would be a really good play. Which it's supposed to be. I didn't particularly enjoy it, reading it. I didn't hate it. I think I've read it twice. I wanted to see what other people thought of it, So I put in Cursed Child and reviews. And then there was a bunch of people who came up, and Cameron Janey was the first booktuber. So I'll have to link his channel down in the description. I forget what it's called, because he's not posting as regularly as he was then. BookTube kind of took over my entertainment side of life. I've found out so many books to read from them, about different authors that I've now met that I never would have even heard of from BookTube. And I try to watch a variety of booktubers and get different ideas, and I actually use a lot of the reviews I watch for work purposes in order to, buy books that teens will really like for the teen room. So this is becoming very long. I just wanted to have you guys get to know me a little bit of my backstory, a little bit of my reading backstory. If there's anything else you want to know about me, or if you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer. So, keep reading.